Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Perfect Life. Rob Hartwell stood at his kitchen window, watching the evening sun cast long shadows across his manicured lawn. At 42, he had built what most would consider the American dream. A sprawling colonial house in Millbrook Heights, a successful construction company, and a family that appeared picture-perfect from the outside. His wife Lisa moved through their home with practiced grace, her auburn hair catching the light as she prepared dinner. Married for 15 years, she had been his anchor after he'd left his previous life behind. Danny, their 13-year-old son, hunched over his homework at the dining table, occasionally glancing up at his father with a mixture of admiration and mild fear that Rob had come to expect. Few people knew about Rob's past. Before Hartwell Construction, before suburban Connecticut, he had been Staff Sergeant Robert Hartwell of the 75th Ranger Regiment. 3 tours in Afghanistan had taught him patience, precision, and the value of reading people. More importantly, they had taught him that mercy was a luxury he couldn't afford when survival was on the line. The transition to civilian life had been surprisingly smooth. Lisa, a nurse he'd met during his recovery from a shrapnel wound, had provided the stability he needed. Her gentle nature had been a balm to his war-torn psyche, and when Danny was born, Rob had believed he'd finally found peace. But something had shifted in recent months. Lisa's phone calls ended abruptly when he entered rooms. She volunteered for extra shifts at the hospital with increasing frequency. Small details that as trained eye couldn't ignore. New perfume, clothes he hadn't seen her buy, a lightness in her step that hadn't been there in years. Rob had learned long ago that intuition kept you alive. His was screaming, "Dad, can you help me with this math problem?" Danny's voice broke through his thoughts. Rob settled beside his son, noting how the boy instinctively straightened when he approached. The respect was there, but so was distance. Rob had tried to be softer with Danny than his own father had been with him, but some habits died hard. The boy needed to understand that strength mattered in this world. "What's the problem?" Rob asked, scanning the worksheet. As they worked through the algebra, Rob's phone buzzed. A text from his foreman. "Storm damage on the Morrison site. Need your call." "I have to step out for a bit," Rob announced, grabbing his keys. "Work emergency." Lisa looked up from the stove, her expression unreadable. "How long will you be?" "Couple hours, maybe less." He kissed her cheek, noticing how she tensed slightly at his touch. Another small sign in the growing collection. The Morrison job site was a 40-minute drive, but Rob handled the crisis in 20 minutes. A fallen tree had damaged some framing, nothing that couldn't wait until morning. He'd used work emergencies as cover before, old habits from his military days, when gathering intelligence meant being where people didn't expect you. As he drove home through the darkening streets of Millbrook Heights, Rob's mind worked through possibilities. If Lisa was having an affair, he needed proof. If it was something else, something worse, he needed to know that too. The one thing he wouldn't tolerate was betrayal. He'd made that clear to everyone in his life, including Lisa. The neighborhood was quiet as he pulled into his driveway. Most houses glowed with the warm light of family dinners and evening routines. The picture of suburban tranquility. But Rob had learned that surfaces often lied. He'd kill the headlights and sat for a moment, studying his house. Lisa's car was in the garage. Danny's light was on upstairs. Everything appeared normal. But as he walked toward the front door, he noticed his neighbor, Mrs. Eleanor Vance, watching from her window. She quickly ducked behind her curtains. Mrs. Vance was a widow in her 70s, the unofficial neighborhood watchdog. She knew everyone's business and wasn't shy about sharing it. Her vigilance had always amused Rob, but tonight, her behavior seemed different. Nervous. Inside, the house felt too quiet. Lisa was loading the dishwasher, moving with the efficient motions of someone eager to finish a task. "Everything okay at the site?" she asked without looking up. "Fine. Just storm damage." Rob studied her profile. "You seem distracted. Just tired. Long shift." She closed the dishwasher with more force than necessary. "I'm going to bed early. I'll be up in a bit." Want to check on Danny first. Rob climbed the stairs, his footsteps silent on the carpeted steps, another habit from his past life. Danny's door was cracked open, soft music playing from his phone. The boy was already asleep, his face peaceful in the dim light. For a moment, Rob allowed himself to imagine that his suspicions were wrong, that his family was exactly what it appeared to be. But as he turned to head to his bedroom, he heard Lisa's voice drifting up from downstairs. She was on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. He couldn't make out the words, but the tone was intimate, familiar. The voice of a woman talking to a lover. Rob stood frozen at the top of the stairs, his jaw clenched. 15 years of marriage, and she was throwing it away for what? A moment of excitement? A midlife crisis? The conversation ended, and he heard Lisa moving around downstairs. By the time she came to bed, Rob was pretending to read, his face carefully neutral. "Good book?" she asked, settling under the covers. "Military history. Pretty dry stuff." He set the book aside and turned off the lamp. "Good night, Lisa." "Good night." In the darkness, Rob stared at the ceiling and began a plan. If Lisa wanted to play games, she'd pick the wrong opponent. He'd spent years learning how to hunt the most dangerous prey on Earth. A cheating suburban wife would be child's play. But first, he needed to know exactly what he was dealing with. Tomorrow, he'd start gathering intelligence. And then, depending on what he found, he'd decide just how merciless his response would be. Chapter 2. The Discovery. The next morning unfolded with the deceptive normalcy that Rob was beginning to recognize as performance art. Lisa bustled around the kitchen, making coffee and packing Danny's lunch with the practiced efficiency of a devoted mother. But Rob noticed the tremor in her hands, the way she avoided his eyes. "I might be late tonight," she said, not looking up from Danny's sandwich. "Dr. Morrison wants me to cover the evening shift." Again, Rob kept his tone light, but made sure she heard the question underneath. "It's good money, and with Danny starting high school next year." She trailed off, finally meeting his eyes. "We could use the extra income." It was a reasonable explanation. It was also a lie. Rob had built a successful business. Money wasn't an issue, and Lisa knew it. But he simply nodded and kissed her cheek before heading to work. At the job site, Rob's mind wasn't on construction schedules or supply deliveries. He was thinking like a soldier again, analyzing patterns and weaknesses. Lisa's affair, because he was now certain that's what this was, had made her sloppy. People in love, even illicit love, always were. During lunch break, he made a call to an old Army buddy who now ran a private security firm in Hartford. Tony Riggs owed Rob his life from an incident in Kandahar that neither man talked about anymore. "I need a favor," Rob said without preamble when Tony answered. "What kind of favor?" "The quiet kind. Background check on someone. Real quiet." Tony was silent for a moment. "Personal?" "Yeah. Text me the details. I'll have something by tomorrow." Rob sent over what he knew. Lisa's full name, birth date, social security number, workplace. If she was involved with someone, Tony would find out who. The afternoon dragged by, but Rob forced himself to maintain his routine. He reviewed blueprints, spoke with subcontractors, handled the dozen small crises that arose on any construction site. But his mind kept circling back to Lisa, to the careful way she'd been arranging her deceptions. At 5:30, he drove home through the familiar streets of Millbrook Heights. The neighborhood was coming alive with the evening rituals of suburban life. Children playing in yards, fathers washing cars, mothers calling families to dinner. The American dream on full display. Mrs. Vance was in her garden when he pulled into his driveway, her attention seemingly focused on her roses. But Rob caught her watching him in his peripheral vision. He made a mental note to speak with her soon. In his experience, nosy neighbors often knew more than they realized. Inside, Danny was sprawled on the living room floor, textbooks scattered around him. The sight of his son studying triggered something protective in Rob's chest. Whatever Lisa was doing, Danny would be caught in the crossfire. The boy didn't deserve that. "Where's your mom?" Rob asked, settling into his recliner. "Hospital. Said she'd be late again." Danny didn't look up from his history book. "Mrs. Patterson is making dinner for us." Mrs. Patterson was their neighbor from 2 houses down, a kind woman who often helped out when Lisa worked late shifts, or claimed to. Rob spent the evening helping Danny with homework and reviewing work emails, but part of his attention remained focused on the clock. At 8:30, his phone buzzed with a text from Lisa. Busy night. Won't be home until after midnight. Don't wait up. He stared at the message, noting its brevity, the lack of any personal touch. This wasn't the woman who used to send him rambling texts about her day, who'd add heart emojis and inside jokes. This was someone checking in with an obligation. After putting Danny to bed, Rob sat in his darkened living room, nursing a beer and thinking. The house felt different without Lisa, more honest somehow. The careful performance was over, and he could finally drop his own act. His phone rang at 9:15. "Tony, that was fast," Rob said. "This one was easy. Your wife's been busy, brother." Rob felt his grip tighten on the phone. "Tell me." "She's been seeing someone for about 4 months. Guy named Trevor Mills, 36, works as a physical therapist at the same hospital. Divorced, no kids, clean record. But here's where it gets interesting." "I'm listening." "This isn't his first rodeo with married women. Guy's got a pattern. Targets wives with money, usually older. There was a situation in Boston 2 years ago, a woman named Jennifer Caldwell, married to a successful lawyer. She died in a car accident 6 months after she started seeing Mills." Rob's blood went cold. "Accident. That's what the report says. Single car crash, lost control on a rainy night. But the timing was convenient. The husband had just increased her life insurance policy. Mills disappeared from Boston right after the funeral. And I think your wife might be in over her head with the wrong guy. Or maybe she knows exactly what she's doing. Either way, you need to be careful." After Tony hung up, Rob sat in the silence of his house, processing what he'd learned. Lisa wasn't just having an affair. She was involved with someone who might be planning something far worse than adultery. He thought about Danny, asleep upstairs, innocent and trusting. About the life insurance policies Lisa had suggested they update last month. About her sudden interest in their financial accounts. Her questions about his business assets. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture that made Rob's military instincts scream warnings. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a setup. At 11:40, he heard a car in the driveway. Rob quickly moved to the window, watching as a dark sedan dropped Lisa off at the end of their driveway. She walked quickly to the house, her heels clicking on the pavement, her movements those of someone trying not to be noticed. Rob was back in his chair, apparently asleep, when she crept inside. He listened to her move through the house, her footsteps careful and measured. She paused outside Danny's room, then continued to their bedroom. When she slipped into bed beside him, Rob could smell unfamiliar cologne on her clothes. The scent of another man, another life she was living in the shadows. "Rob," she whispered, "are you awake?" He didn't answer, keeping his breathing steady and deep. After a few minutes, Lisa relaxed beside him, apparently satisfied that he was asleep. But Rob lay awake for hours, his mind working through scenarios and possibilities. If Trevor Mills was as dangerous as Tony suggested, then Lisa might be as much a victim as a perpetrator. Or she might be a willing accomplice in whatever they were planning. Either way, Rob knew one thing for certain. He wouldn't wait around to find out which. Tomorrow, he'd begin his own operation. And unlike his targets, he had experience dealing with people who want him dead. By morning, Rob had made his decision. If they wanted to play the long game, he'd show them what a real predator looked like when it was cornered. Chapter 3. The Hunter Emerges. Rob woke before dawn, his internal clock still tuned to military precision. Lisa lay beside him, her face peaceful in sleep, looking like the woman he'd fallen in love with 15 years ago. But Rob had learned not to trust appearances. People were never who they seemed to be, especially when they had something to hide. He slipped out of bed and dressed quietly, his movements automatic and silent. Downstairs, he started the coffee maker and settled at his laptop. Time to do some hunting of his own. Trevor Mills had left a digital footprint, as most people did in the modern world. Social media profiles painted him as a charming, fitness-obsessed professional who specialized in sports therapy. His Instagram was full of selfies at the gym, Pictures of expensive dinners and motivational quotes about living life to the fullest. Classic narcissist behavior, in Rob's opinion. More interesting were the gaps in Mill's online presence. 6 months in Boston with no posts, followed by a sudden move to Connecticut. A pattern of targeting women in their late 30s and early 40s, always married, always financially comfortable. The man was a professional, Rob realized. A predator with a system. Lisa appeared in the kitchen at 7, already dressed for work in scrubs that seemed somehow more flattering than they used to be. She moved with purpose, avoiding his eyes as she poured coffee. "You're up early," she said. "Couldn't sleep. Storm kept me awake." There had been no storm, but Lisa didn't contradict him. Either she'd been too distracted to notice the weather, or she was too lost in her own lies to track his. "I might be late again tonight," she said, reaching for her purse. Dr. Morrison scheduled another evening procedure. Rob looked up from his laptop, studying her face. She met his eyes this time, her expression carefully neutral. She was getting better at lying, he noted. Practice made perfect. "That's the 3rd time this week," he said. "Maybe you should ask for a raise." "Maybe I will." She kissed his cheek, the gesture perfunctory. "Tell Danny I said goodbye." After she left, Rob sat in the quiet kitchen, thinking. Lisa's deception was becoming more elaborate, which meant whatever she and Mills were planning was accelerating. He needed to move faster. At 8:30, after Danny caught the school bus, Rob made another call to Tony. "I need more on Trevor Mills," he said. "Everything you can find. Financial records, employment history, known associates. And I need it today. This is getting serious, isn't it?" "Yeah, it is." Rob spent the morning at the job site, but his mind was elsewhere. He found himself studying the crew, noting which men had the skill set for surveillance work. Old habits from his Army days, when every mission required backup plans and contingencies. Around noon, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Meet me at Riverside Park. Bench by the duck pond. 1 hour. Come alone." Rob stared at the message, his instincts immediately on high alert. This wasn't from Tony. His contact would have called. Someone else knew about his investigation. He drove to Riverside Park, his senses heightened. The place was mostly empty on a Tuesday afternoon, just a few joggers and an elderly man feeding ducks. Rob spotted Mrs. Vance sitting on the specified bench, looking nervous and out of place. "Mrs. Vance," he said, approaching slowly. "I wasn't expecting to see you here." "I know this is strange, Robert," she said, not meeting his eyes. "But I had to talk to you." "About Lisa." Rob settled beside her on the bench, maintaining the casual posture of a neighborly conversation while his mind raced. "What about Lisa?" "I've been watching. I know that sounds terrible, but I've lived in this neighborhood for 30 years. I notice things." She twisted her hands in her lap. "Lisa's been lying to you." "Go on." "She hasn't been working late at the hospital. Not every night, anyway. I've seen her car come home, then leave again after you're in bed. And yesterday morning, when you left for work early, a man came to your house. He was there for 2 hours." Rob felt his jaw clench. "Can you describe it?" "Tall, dark hair, expensive clothes. Handsome, I suppose. He had a key, Robert. He let himself in like he belonged there." The confirmation of what Rob already suspected still hit him like a physical blow. But it was the detail about the key that made his blood run cold. Giving Mills access to their home meant this had moved beyond a simple affair. It was an invasion. "Why are you telling me this?" Rob asked. Mrs. Vance finally looked at him, her eyes frightened. "Because I'm scared for you. And for Danny. Last night, when you and Lisa came home from your neighbor's emergency, I was watching from my window. I saw that man in your backyard. He ran when the police cars arrived." Rob's mind went blank for a moment. There had been no neighbor's emergency last night. No police cars. Mrs. Vance was confused, mixing up events, or then it hit him. She was talking about something that hadn't happened yet, something that was planned for the future. "Mrs. Vance," he said carefully, "what emergency are you talking about?" Her face went pale. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I heard Lisa on the phone yesterday. She was talking about tonight, about how you and Danny would be coming home, and..." She stopped, her hand flying to her mouth. "What did you hear exactly?" She said, "When Robert and Danny get home tonight, we'll be ready." The neighbor will pull them aside, and then we can finish this. I thought she was planning a surprise party or something, but then she said something about making it look like an accident. Rob's training kicked in, overriding the shock and rage that threatened to consume him. Lisa and Mills weren't just planning to betray him. They were planning to kill him. Tonight, Mrs. Vance, I need you to listen to me very carefully, he said, his voice calm and controlled. You need to go visit your sister in Albany. Today, right now, pack a bag and leave town for a few days. But Robert, this isn't a suggestion. These people are dangerous, and you've already seen too much. If you stay, you could get hurt. Mrs. Vance nodded, tears in her eyes. What about you and Danny? Rob stood, his mind already working through the tactical situation. Don't worry about us. But Mrs. Vance? If anyone asks, you never spoke to me today. As he drove back home, Rob's phone rang. Tony, I've got more on your boy Mills, Tony said. And brother, you're not going to like it. Tell me, Jennifer Caldwell in Boston? Her death wasn't the first. There was another woman in Phoenix and one in Miami before that. All married, all wealthy, all dead within 6 months of getting involved with Mills. The man's a serial killer, Rob. He targets married women, seduces them, gets them to change their wills or insurance policies, then kills them and their families. Rob felt something cold and predatory awaken in his chest. Any arrests? Never enough evidence. Guy's careful, and he has help. There's a woman who works with him, different name each time, but the same MO. She gets close to the targets, gains their trust, helps set up the kills. A woman. Rob thought about Lisa's behavior over the past few months, her sudden interest in their finances, her questions about his business insurance. How long had she been planning this? How long had she been someone else entirely? Tony, Rob said, I need you to make some calls. People who might be interested in dealing with a problem like this. Quietly, Rob, whatever you're thinking. I'm thinking my wife and her boyfriend are planning to murder me and my son tonight. And I'm thinking that's a mistake they're going to regret. Rob ended the call and drove toward his house, his mind clear and focused for the first time in months. The game had changed. Lisa and Mills thought they were hunting a suburban contractor, an easy mark who'd build a comfortable life and gone soft. They had no idea they'd targeted a man who'd spent years learning how to kill without remorse, how to plan operations that left no evidence, how to eliminate threats with surgical precision. Tonight, they'd learn the difference between predator and prey. And Rob would teach them the most important lesson of all. Never underestimate a soldier who's protecting his family. The war was about to begin. Chapter 4, The Soldier's Mind. Rob arrived home to find the house exactly as he'd left it, on the surface. But now he moved through the familiar spaces with a different perspective, seeing them through the eyes of someone planning an attack. He noted sight lines, entry points, potential weapons, escape routes. The comfortable suburban home transformed into a battlefield in his mind. In his study, he opened a safe hidden behind a bookshelf. Inside were items from his previous life, tactical gear, communication equipment, and a Glock 19 he'd kept despite Lisa's objections. His hands moved with muscle memory as he checked the weapon, loaded it, and secured it in a concealed holster. From another compartment, he retrieved a military-grade tactical knife and a small surveillance device, technology that had saved his life more than once in Afghanistan. Old habits died hard, and Rob had never quite trusted the peace of civilian life enough to completely disarm himself. His phone buzzed. A text from Lisa, working late again. Kissed Danny goodnight for me. Rob stared at the message, feeling the last vestiges of the man who'd loved her die quietly in his chest. She was already positioning herself away from the scene, establishing her alibi while her partner prepared for murder. Danny came home from school at 3:15, dumping his backpack by the door with teenage carelessness. For a moment, Rob watched his son and felt something that might have been grief. After tonight, their lives would never be the same. Dad, you okay? Danny was looking at him with concern. You look weird. Just thinking about work stuff, Rob said. How was school? Boring. Can I go to Tyler's house? His mom said I could stay for dinner. Perfect. Rob needed Danny away from the house, but sending him away too obviously might alert Lisa to a change in routine. Tyler's mom called me. No, but call her. If she's okay with it, you can go. But I want you to spend the night there too. School project or something. Danny's face brightened. Really? Sweet. Tyler's got the new Call of Duty game. Just call his mom first. While Danny made the call, Rob's mind worked through the evening's probabilities. If Mrs. Vance had overheard correctly, the plan involved him and Danny returning home to some kind of staged emergency. A neighbor would intercept them, providing an alibi witness, while Lisa and Mills were inside waiting. The setup suggested they planned to make it look like a home invasion gone wrong, or possibly a murder-suicide. Rob had seen enough crime scenes to know how these things were typically staged. Danny bounded back into the room. Mrs. Chun says it's fine. She's making spaghetti. Good. Pack an overnight bag. I'll drive you over. As Danny ran upstairs, Rob's phone rang. A number he didn't recognize. Yeah. Mr. Hartwell? This is Detective Morrison from the State Police. I understand you might have some information about a case we're working on. Rob went cold. No one should know about his investigation except Tony. Who told you that? A concerned citizen called in a tip. Says they have reason to believe your wife might be in danger. Something about a man named Trevor Mills. The call was a setup. Either Mills had somehow learned about Rob's investigation and was trying to smoke him out, or Lisa was creating a paper trail that would support whatever story they planned to tell after tonight. I think you have the wrong number, Rob said. I don't know anyone named Trevor Mills. Sir, if your wife is involved with this man, she could be in serious danger. Mills is wanted for questioning in connection with several suspicious deaths. We need to bring her in for her own protection. Like I said, wrong number. Rob hung up and immediately called Tony. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? Someone just called claiming to be state police, warning me about Mills. Used your exact words from this morning. Tony swore. Someone's got ears on this conversation. My secure line might be compromised. Or yours isn't the only investigation into Mills. Rob thought quickly. Either way, they know I know. That changes tonight's timeline. Rob, you need to get out of there. Take your boy and disappear for a while. No. Rob's voice was flat, final. I'm done running from problems. These people want to play games with my family? I'll show them what a real game looks like. After hanging up, Rob drove Danny to the Chun house, his mind calculating odds and variables. The fake police call meant his enemies were either very smart or very desperate. Possibly both. Dad, Danny said as they pulled into the Chen's driveway. Everything's okay, right? You've been acting strange lately. Rob looked at his son, really looked at him. Danny had his mother's eyes, but Rob's stubborn jaw. A good kid who deserved better than to grow up with a mother who'd try to have him killed. Everything's going to be fine, Rob said. I just need you to promise me something. If anything weird happens, if anyone you don't know comes looking for you, or if Mrs. Chun gets scared about anything, you call me immediately. And if you can't reach me, you call Uncle Tony. He handed Danny a business card with Tony's number. You're scaring me, Dad. Good. Smart people get scared sometimes. It keeps them alive. Back home, Rob began his preparations in earnest. He swept the house for surveillance devices and found two, a listening device in the bedroom and a small camera in the kitchen. Both were professional grade, which meant Mills had more resources than Tony's initial investigation had revealed. Rob left the devices in place, but disabled them in ways that would look like technical malfunctions. Let them think their surveillance had simply failed rather than been discovered. In his garage, he gathered materials from his construction supplies. Wire, timers, small explosive charges used for controlled demolitions. In the right hands, construction materials could become very dangerous things. As the sun set, Rob positioned himself in his darkened living room with a clear view of the street. The tactical vest felt familiar under his shirt, like putting on an old uniform. His weapons were within easy reach, and his mind had settled into the calm, predatory focus that had kept him alive through 3 combat tours. At 8:30, Mrs. Vance's house went dark. She'd followed his advice and left town, which was one less variable to worry about. At 9:15, a dark sedan cruised slowly past his house, the same car that had dropped Lisa off the night before. Rob's phone buzzed. Heading home now. Danny asleep? He typed back, at Tyler's for the night. See you soon. The trap was set. Now, he just had to wait for the predators to walk into it. But Rob had learned something important during his years as a soldier. The best defense was always a vicious, overwhelming offense. Tonight, Lisa and Mills would discover that they'd made a fatal error in judgment. They'd tried to hunt a man who'd spent years perfecting the art of war. And in war, mercy was a luxury that got you killed. Chapter 5, The Web Tightens. At 9:45, Rob's motion sensors picked up movement in his backyard. He'd installed the system years ago as a security measure, but tonight it served a different purpose. Through his night vision scope, he watched a figure moving carefully along the tree line behind his house. Trevor Mills was exactly what Rob had expected. Tall, athletic, moving with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. He carried a small duffel bag and wore dark clothing that would blend into shadows. Professional equipment for a professional killer. Rob's phone buzzed with another text from Lisa, 5 minutes out. Make sure the garage door is open. Interesting. She wanted him to meet her in the garage, away from windows where neighbors might see. That suggested the plan required witnesses to believe Rob had been home when the attack occurred. Rob moved through his house with silent precision, checking his preparations one final time. The explosive charges were in place, wired to remote detonators he could trigger from his phone. Not enough to level the house, but sufficient to create chaos and eliminate evidence. In the kitchen, he left a half-finished beer on the counter and turned on the television, signs of normal evening activity. Then he slipped out through his basement exit, a door hidden behind landscaping that Lisa had never known existed. The backyard was dark, but Rob moved through it like he owned it. Because he did. Every tree, every shadow, every sight line had been mapped in his mind. This was his terrain, and Mills was operating blind. Rob positioned himself behind the garden shed with a clear view of both the house and the woods where Mills was hiding. His phone showed Lisa's car turning onto their street. Through his scope, Rob watched Mills check his watch and begin moving toward the house. The man's timing was precise, coordinated with Lisa's arrival. They'd planned this carefully, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed their target would be passive. Lisa's car pulled into the driveway. Rob watched her sit behind the wheel for a moment, her phone glowing as she typed a message, probably confirming to Mills that she was in position. Then she stepped out of the car, and Rob felt a cold shock run through him. Lisa was wearing scrubs, but underneath he could see a bulletproof vest. She was armed and armored, prepared for a fight. This wasn't a seduction gone wrong or a crime of passion. This was a military-style operation. His wife had become someone he'd never known existed. Lisa moved toward the house, her movements careful and controlled. She had training, Rob realized. Probably not military, but enough to be dangerous. The question was, had she always been this person, or had Mills transformed her into something else? Through his phone, Rob triggered the listening device in the bedroom, turning it back on. If they were going to coordinate their attack, he wanted to hear their plan. Mills reached the back door as Lisa entered through the garage. Rob listened through his earpiece as they moved through his house like they owned it. He's not here, Mills said, his voice carrying the flat accent of the American Midwest. His car's in the driveway, Lisa replied. He has to be here. Well, find him. We're on a schedule. Rob smiled grimly. They were looking for a victim who was supposed to be watching television and drinking beer. Instead, they'd walked into the web of someone who'd spent years hunting the most dangerous prey on Earth. Maybe he's in the shower, Lisa suggested. Check upstairs. I'll take the basement. They were splitting up, which was tactically sound but played into Rob's hands. Divide and conquer worked both ways. Rob triggered the first phase of his plan. The lights in the house went out as he cut power to the main electrical panel. Emergency lighting kicked in, casting eerie shadows through the windows. What the hell? Mills' voice crackled through the earpiece. Power must have gone out, Lisa said, but Rob could hear the uncertainty in her voice. There's a backup generator in the garage. Forget the generator. We do this in the dark. Rob moved closer to the house, using the shadows to mask his approach. Through the kitchen window, he could see Mills moving through the downstairs rooms, a flashlight in one hand and a pistol in the other. The man was skilled, checking corners and maintaining tactical awareness. But he was also in Rob's house, where every creak and shadow was familiar territory. Rob triggered the second phase. The motion-activated sprinkler system came online, flooding the backyard with water and creating a muddy, slippery terrain that would slow any escape attempt. It also covered the sound of his movement as he approached the back door. Inside, he could hear Lisa calling softly, "Robert, are you okay? The power's out." The performance was almost convincing. If Rob hadn't known better, he might have believed his worried wife was searching for him in the dark. But he'd heard her real voice talking to Mills, seen her bulletproof vest, watched her move like someone who knew how to kill. His phone vibrated with a motion alert from his front yard cameras. A van had pulled up across the street, and two more figures were moving toward his house. This wasn't just Lisa and Mills. They had a team. Rob's mind shifted into combat mode. 4 attackers, professional equipment, coordinated timing. They'd planned this as a precision operation, probably intending to stage it as a home invasion that went tragically wrong. But they'd made their first mistake by bringing a knife to a gunfight. And their second mistake was thinking they were hunting a suburban contractor instead of a soldier who'd made killing his profession. Through his earpiece, Rob heard Mills moving toward the basement stairs. Time to even the odds. He entered his house through the back door, moving with the silent precision that had kept him alive in hostile territory. The familiar layout guided him through the darkness as he positioned himself at the top of the basement stairs. Below, Mills' flashlight beam swept across the basement workshop where Rob kept his tools. The man was being thorough, checking every hiding place. Professional behavior. Rob waited until Mills was at the far end of the basement, then triggered the third phase of his plan. The basement door slammed shut and locked automatically, trapping Mills below. At the same time, Rob released a small canister of tear gas down the stairs. Mills' shouts of alarm echoed through the house as the gas took effect. Rob smiled grimly. 1 down, 3 to go. Trevor. Lisa's voice was sharp with panic. Trevor, what's happening? Rob's phone showed the other 2 attackers reaching his front door. Time to introduce himself properly. In the darkness of his own home, Robert Hartwell stopped being a suburban contractor and became Staff Sergeant Hartwell again. And Staff Sergeant Hartwell had never lost a battle. Chapter 6. The Hunt Begins. Rob moved through his darkened house like a ghost, every footstep calculated and silent. Lisa was on the 2nd floor, her flashlight beam visible through the stair railing as she searched the bedrooms. The 2 newcomers were at his front door, their lockpicking tools working methodically through his security system. From the basement came the sound of Mills coughing and cursing as the tear gas did its work. The man was trapped, but not eliminated, a problem Rob would address shortly. But first, he needed to deal with the immediate threat. Through his front window cameras, Rob studied the 2 new arrivals. Both men, both armed, both moving with the professional coordination of people who'd done this before. One was older, maybe 50, with the thick build of an ex-cop or military. The other was younger, lean and quick, probably the team's specialist for breaking and entering. Rob's phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. He answered it, knowing exactly who it would be. Mr. Hartwell. The older man's voice came through clearly. My name is Detective Morrison. We spoke earlier today. Still not a real detective, Rob said softly. You're right. But I am the man who's going to kill you and your family tonight unless you cooperate. Rob watched through his camera as the fake detective gestured to his partner, who produced a small explosive device. They were preparing to breach his front door. What do you want? Rob asked, playing for time while he positioned himself. I want you to come outside, hands visible, and walk slowly to the van across the street. Do that, and your son lives. My son isn't here. Tyler Chen's house. 47, Maple Street. My associates are already in position. Rob felt ice form in his veins. They had Danny's location, which meant they'd been watching for longer than he'd realized. This wasn't just about killing him and Lisa. They were eliminating potential witnesses. I need proof my son is safe, Rob said. You'll get proof when you surrender. You have 60 seconds. The line went dead. Rob immediately called Tony while moving toward his weapons cache. They've got Danny's location, he said when Tony answered. I'm 10 minutes out from the Chen house. Tony replied. My team's already moving. Make it 5 minutes. Rob, what about you? I'm about to have a very loud conversation with some people who think they're running this operation. Rob ended the call and triggered the fourth phase of his plan. Every window in his house suddenly blazed with light as hidden floodlights activated, turning his home into a beacon visible for blocks. The sudden illumination would alert every neighbor within a quarter mile that something was wrong. Then he triggered the fifth phase. The small explosive charges he'd placed throughout the house began detonating in sequence. Not enough to cause structural damage, but sufficient to create the sound of a massive firefight. Smoke grenades activated simultaneously, filling the first floor with thick, choking clouds. To anyone outside, it would sound like a war zone. The fake detective and his partner immediately aborted their breach attempt, falling back toward their van as sirens began wailing in the distance. Rob's noise had triggered every security alarm within 6 blocks, and Millbrook Heights' private security company was already responding. But Rob wasn't finished. Through his basement intercom, he spoke to Mills. Trevor? Can you hear me down there? Mills' coughing reply was barely intelligible. Good. I want you to listen very carefully. My name is Staff Sergeant Robert Hartwell, 75th Ranger Regiment. 3 tours in Afghanistan, specializing in counterinsurgency operations. That means I've spent the last 15 years learning how to hunt people like you. Rob moved toward the basement door, gas mask in place, his weapon ready. You made a mistake tonight, Trevor. You brought a few thugs and some basic surveillance equipment to hunt a man who's forgotten more about killing than you'll ever learn. He opened the basement door and descended into the smoke-filled darkness, his night vision goggles turning the basement into a green-tinted battlefield. Mills was on the floor near the far wall, his weapon dropped, his hands clawing at his eyes. The tear gas will clear in about 10 minutes, Rob said conversationally, zip-tying Mills' hands behind his back. But you won't be conscious for it. Mills tried to speak, but Rob's tactical baton to the base of his skull ended the conversation. The man dropped unconscious but breathing. 1 down, 3 to go. Rob's phone buzzed. A text from Tony. Package secured. Your boy is safe. Relief flooded through Rob, followed immediately by cold, calculated rage. They'd threatened Danny. They'd brought his son into this war, and that was an unforgivable escalation. Upstairs, Lisa was calling his name, her voice sharp with panic. The sounds of explosions and the sudden arrival of sirens had clearly not been part of their plan. Robert, what's happening? Are you hurt? Even now, she was maintaining her performance. The concerned wife, terrified for her husband's safety. If Rob hadn't known better, he might have believed her. He climbed the stairs, leaving Mills unconscious in the basement. The first floor was filled with smoke, but Rob moved through it easily, his equipment making him nearly invisible. Lisa, he called back. I'm here. Are you okay? I'm in our bedroom. Something's wrong with the house. I think there's been an explosion. Rob made his way upstairs, noting that Lisa's voice was coming from their walk-in closet. Smart positioning, good cover, multiple exit routes, and close to the bathroom window that offered an escape route to the roof. She was learning, or perhaps she'd always known more than she'd let on. I'm coming, Rob said, approaching the bedroom door. Just stay where you are. Through the doorway, he could see the glow of Lisa's flashlight in the closet. She was positioned behind their dresser, using it as cover. Her pistol was visible in her right hand. Rob smiled grimly. The mask was finally coming off. Lisa, he said softly, we need to talk. Chapter 7, The Reckoning. Rob stood in the doorway of his bedroom, studying the woman who had shared his bed for 15 years. Lisa crouched behind their dresser, her pistol trained on the doorway, her face a mask of concentration that he'd never seen before. This wasn't the gentle nurse he'd married. This was someone else entirely. Come out slowly, Robert, she said, her voice steady and cold. Hands where I can see them. You know, Lisa, in all our years together, you never mentioned you knew how to handle a gun. There are a lot of things you don't know about me. Rob stepped into the room, his hands visible but ready. Through his night vision, he could see that Lisa was wearing more than just the bulletproof vest. She had tactical gear hidden under her scrubs, including what looked like a communication device. Like the fact that you've been planning to kill me for months. Lisa's grip on the pistol tightened. Where's Trevor? Taking a nap in the basement. Don't worry, he's still breathing. For now. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into, Robert. Actually, I think I do. Trevor Mills, serial killer with a specialty in married women. 3 confirmed victims, probably more. You helped him target me, just like you helped him with the others. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Lisa's eyes. How do you know about Jennifer Caldwell? About Phoenix and Miami? Because I spent 15 years learning how to gather intelligence, Lisa. It's what I do. Sirens were getting closer, and Rob could hear vehicles arriving outside. But the sounds weren't from police. They were from Millbrook Heights Security, whose response protocols Rob had helped design when he'd moved to the neighborhood. Those aren't cops, Rob said conversationally. It's private security. They'll contain the area and wait for real police, which gives us about 20 minutes to finish our conversation. Robert, listen to me. You don't understand the situation. I understand that you've been lying to me for months. I understand that you gave your boyfriend a key to our house. I understand that you were planning to kill me and Danny tonight and make it look like a home invasion. Lisa's face went pale. Danny? We never. Your friends had his location. They threatened him to make me surrender. That wasn't part of the plan. Lisa's composure cracked, revealing something that might have been genuine distress. Trevor promised me Danny would be safe. And you believed him? A man who's killed at least 4 people, including children? There were no children in Boston or... Jennifer Caldwell had an 8-year-old daughter, Lisa. She died in the same car crash. Did Trevor forget to mention that detail? The color drained from Lisa's face completely. For a moment, the weapon in her hands wavered. That's impossible. He told me she was alone. He said we would never hurt children. He lied. Just like he lied when he told you this would be quick and clean. Just like he lied when he said he loved you. Rob could see the moment when Lisa's entire worldview began to collapse. The woman who'd spent months planning his murder was realizing she'd been as much a victim as a perpetrator. Lisa, Rob said softly, how long have you known him? 8 months, she whispered. He came to the hospital after a climbing accident. I was his physical therapist. Before that, did you ever think about killing anyone? Did you ever imagine yourself planning a murder? No, never. I'm a nurse. I save people. Then what happened? What changed? Lisa's hands were shaking now, the gun no longer steady. He said you were planning to leave me, that you'd hired a lawyer, that you were going to take Danny and disappear. He showed me documents, emails, all fake. He said if we didn't act first, I'd lose everything. Danny would grow up hating me. I'd be alone and broke, and he offered you a solution. At first, it was just surveillance. He wanted to know your schedule, your routines. Then he started talking about how easy it would be to stage an accident, how we could be together and Danny would inherit everything. Rob stepped closer, his voice gentle despite the situation. Lisa, look at me. Really look at me. In 15 years of marriage, have I ever given you reason to think I'd abandon my family? The weapon dropped to her side as tears began streaming down her face. No, God, no. You're the most loyal person I've ever known. That's why I fell in love with you. Then why did you believe him? Because I wanted to. Because being with him made me feel alive again, and I didn't want to lose that feeling. Rob felt something twist in his chest. Not forgiveness. That was beyond his capacity now, but understanding. Lisa hadn't been evil. She'd been weak, manipulated by someone who understood how to exploit weakness. But weakness that threatened his family was still unforgivable. Where are the others? Rob asked. The 2 men who were at our front door? I don't know. Trevor handles the operational details. I was just supposed to get you into the garage and then what? You pull the trigger yourself. Lisa's face crumpled. I don't know. I don't think I could have. Even after everything, I don't think I could have actually. But you were willing to let Trevor do it. Yes. The simple honesty of her answer cut deeper than any elaborate justification would have. Lisa had been prepared to watch him die, even if she couldn't pull the trigger herself. Danny's safe, Rob said. My people got to him before yours did. Your people. I told you, Lisa. You never really knew who you married. Rob's phone buzzed with a message from Tony. Perimeter secured. Two suspects in custody. Local PD en route. Time was running out. In a few minutes, this would become a police matter with lawyers and procedures and legal complications that would tie up the truth for months. Rob had a choice to make. He could let the system handle Lisa and Mills, trust that justice would eventually prevail, or he could finish this the way he'd been trained to finish things in Afghanistan. He looked at the woman who'd shared his bed, who'd mothered his son, who'd been prepared to watch him die for the promise of a new life with a serial killer. Lisa, he said, I need you to understand something. After tonight, we're done. Not just our marriage, everything. You'll never see Danny again. You'll never contact him, never try to explain yourself to him, never interfere in his life. Robert, please. I'm not finished. You have two choices. You can cooperate fully with the police, testify against Mills and his associates, and accept whatever prison sentence they give you. Or you can disappear tonight and never come back to Connecticut. What do you mean, disappear? Rob's smile was cold and empty. I mean, you have about 10 minutes before the police arrive to decide whether you want to face justice or face me. Because if you choose to fight this, if you try to claim you were coerced or manipulated or not responsible for your actions, I will use every skill I learned in 15 years of military service to hunt you down and finish what you started tonight. Lisa stared at him, seeing for the first time the man she'd actually married. The soldier who'd spent years perfecting the art of war, who'd learned that mercy was a luxury that got people killed. You're scaring me, she whispered. Good. You should be scared. You try to kill my family, Lisa. In my world, that has consequences. Outside, Rob could hear vehicles arriving, real police this time, not private security. Time to make a choice. So what's it going to be? He asked. Prison, or running for the rest of your life? Lisa looked at the gun in her hands, then at the man who'd once promised to love her forever. Her choice would determine how this story ended, and whether she lived to see tomorrow. Chapter 8. The Price of Betrayal. Lisa stared at the weapon in her hands, then slowly placed it on the dresser. The gesture was surrender, but Rob remained ready. 15 years of marriage had taught him that Lisa could be unpredictable when cornered. I choose prison, she said quietly. I choose to testify against Trevor. Smart choice. Will you tell Danny the truth about what I did? Rob considered the question. Danny was 13, old enough to understand betrayal, but young enough to be destroyed by it. Learning that his mother had tried to murder his father would wound the boy in ways that might never heal. I'll tell him you made mistakes and had to go away. The details can wait until he's older. Relief flickered in Lisa's eyes. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. This isn't mercy, Lisa. This is tactics. Danny needs stability right now, not trauma. But when he's 18, when he can handle the truth, he'll learn exactly what kind of person his mother really is. The sound from outside were getting closer. Rob could hear tactical teams setting up a perimeter, the professional efficiency of law enforcement taking control of a crime scene. His phone buzzed with a call from Tony. Rob, you need to know, Mills had backup we didn't account for. There's a sniper team positioned 2 blocks south of your house. Rob's blood went cold. How many? 2 that we can see. Professional setup, military-grade equipment. They've been watching this whole time. Watching for what? Unknown. But they're not moving to engage. It's like they're waiting for something. Rob's mind raced through possibilities. If Mills had backup, why weren't they moving to extract him? Why position snipers to watch rather than act? Unless, Lisa, Rob said slowly, was Trevor working alone? What do you mean? I mean, did he have partners? People who hired him or coordinated with him? Lisa's face went pale. He mentioned someone once, called him the client, said this job was different because the client had specific requirements. What kind of requirements? I don't know. Trevor didn't tell me everything, but he said the client wanted to make sure there were no loose ends. Rob felt ice form in his veins. No loose ends meant eliminating witnesses. All witnesses. Lisa, I need you to think very carefully. Did Trevor ever mention anything about after? About what would happen to you once this was finished? He said we'd disappear together. Start over somewhere tropical. And you believed him? Why wouldn't I? We were partners in this. Rob closed his eyes briefly. Lisa truly had no idea how disposable she was to people like Mills. She'd been a useful tool, nothing more. Lisa, Trevor was going to kill you too. Tonight, after you'd served your purpose. That's impossible. He loved me. He loved what you could do for him. Once you'd help him kill me, you became a liability. Someone who could identify him, testify against him. You think a man who's killed at least 4 families would hesitate to eliminate one more witness? The truth hit Lisa like a physical blow. She staggered, reaching for the wall to steady herself. The bulletproof vest? Rob continued. Did Trevor tell you to wear it? He said it was for protection, in case you fought back, or in case he needed to shoot you and make it look like you died in the struggle with me. Outside, Rob could hear police setting up their command post. Bullhorns would be next, then negotiations. Standard procedure for a domestic disturbance with shots fired. But the sniper team changed everything. This wasn't over. Rob's phone rang. Unknown number. Mr. Hartwell, a cultured voice said, "My name is Arthur Blackwood. I believe you have something that belongs to me." And what would that be? Information. Evidence. Witnesses. Mr. Mills was careless in his record-keeping, and I need to ensure that certain documents don't find their way into the wrong hands. Rob put the call on speaker so Lisa could hear. Let her understand exactly how expendable she'd been. What kind of documents? Financial records, client lists, details about previous operations. The sort of information that could prove embarrassing to certain individuals. And if I refuse to cooperate, then my associates will ensure that you, your son, and anyone else who might have access to such information suffer unfortunate accidents, starting with the police officers currently surrounding your house. Through his window, Rob could see the tactical teams positioning themselves. Good men and women doing their jobs, unaware that they were in a sniper's crosshairs. What do you want? Rob asked. Simple. You and Mrs. Hartwell will come out together. You'll tell the police that this was all a misunderstanding, a domestic dispute that got out of hand. Mr. Mills will unfortunately resist arrest and be killed in the process. Very tragic, but these things happen. And then you'll retrieve whatever evidence Mr. Mills may have hidden in your house and turn it over to my people. In exchange, your family lives, and this entire incident disappears from official records. Lisa was staring at the phone, finally understanding that she'd been a pawn in a much larger game. You have 30 seconds to decide, Blackwood continued. After that, I begin eliminating police officers until you comply. Rob looked at Lisa, seeing his own realization reflected in her eyes. They weren't just dealing with a serial killer anymore. Mills had been working for someone with serious resources, someone who could make entire incidents disappear from official records. Someone who had snipers positioned to kill cops if necessary. 20 seconds, Mr. Hartwell. Rob made his decision. Lisa, when I tell you to move, you're going to run to the bathroom and lock the door. Don't come out until I call your name. Robert, what are you? 10 seconds. Rob triggered the final phase of his plan. Every remaining explosive charge in the house detonated simultaneously, not in sequence this time, but all at once. The controlled demolition charges he'd placed in the foundation support beams turned his home into a collapsing death trap. But they also created the perfect cover for what came next. As his house began to fall apart around them, Rob grabbed Lisa and threw them both toward the bathroom, the most structurally sound room in the house. Behind them, the bedroom ceiling caved in, crushing the space where they'd been standing. In the chaos of the collapse, with dust and debris filling the air, Rob activated his final contingency, the one he'd hoped never to use. His phone auto-dialed a number he'd memorized but never called. When it connected, he spoke a code phrase he'd hoped never to say. Broken Arrow. This is Staff Sergeant Hartwell. I need immediate extraction and full tactical support. Confirmed, Sergeant. Birds are inbound. ETA 4 minutes. Lisa stared at him through the dust and debris. What did you just do? I called in the cavalry, Rob said grimly. And now Mr. Blackwood is about to learn the difference between threatening a suburban contractor and threatening a United States soldier. Outside, the sound of approaching helicopters began to cut through the night air. Rob's war was about to become everyone's problem. Chapter 9. the final stand. The helicopters arrived like mechanical thunder, their rotors beating the air above the ruins of Rob's house. Through the settling dust and debris, floodlights cut through the darkness as fast rope teams descended into his backyard with military precision. Rob recognized the uniforms and equipment immediately. Special Operations Command, probably drawn from his old unit. The cavalry had arrived, and they were ready for war. "Lisa," Rob said, helping her to her feet in the bathroom that had become their shelter, "whatever happens next, stay behind me and do exactly what I tell you." She nodded, too shocked to speak. Blood trickled from a cut on her forehead, and her nurse's scrubs were torn and dusty, but she was alive. Rob's phone buzzed with an encrypted call. "Hartwell, this is Colonel Morrison. What's your status?" "Two civilians in protective custody, one hostile in the basement. Unknown number of additional hostiles with sniper support. Primary threat is Arthur Blackwood, civilian contractor with military resources." "Copy that. We've got thermal imaging on 2 sniper positions, both neutralized. Hostiles in black SUVs attempting to flee the area, being intercepted now." Through the bathroom window, Rob could see muzzle flashes in the distance as special ops teams engaged the fleeing vehicles. This had escalated from a domestic situation to a full military operation in minutes. "Sergeant," the colonel continued, "we need you to extract with any evidence related to this Blackwood individual. Command wants a full debrief on his operation." "Roger that. Be advised, one of the civilians is a cooperative witness with information about the hostile network." Rob looked at Lisa, who was staring at him with something approaching awe. The mild-mannered contractor she'd married had just summoned a military strike force with a phone call. "Robert," she whispered, "who are you really? Someone you should have asked that question about 15 years ago." A special ops soldier appeared at the bathroom window, his night vision goggles and tactical gear, making him look like something from a science fiction movie. "Sergeant Hartwell, I'm Master Sergeant Rodriguez. We're here to extract you. 2 civilians, plus whatever intel Mills was carrying." "Copy that. We've already secured the basement hostile. He's unconscious but stable." Rodriguez helped them through the window and out of the collapsed house. In the backyard, Rob saw a scene from his military past. Tactical teams securing the perimeter, communications specialists coordinating with air support, and medical personnel setting up a field station. "Danny," the thought hit Rob like a physical blow. "Rodriguez, I need immediate status on my son. He was at 47 Maple Street under protective custody. Already secured. Sergeant, your boy is safe and asking for you." Relief flooded through Rob, followed immediately by cold determination. Blackwood had threatened Danny. That was an unforgivable escalation that would have permanent consequences. "Where is Arthur Blackwood now?" Rob asked. "Unknown, but we recovered communications equipment from the sniper teams. NSA is backtracking his network as we speak." A Black Hawk helicopter touched down in Rob's backyard, its rotors churning up debris from his destroyed house. Lisa stared at the military hardware surrounding them, finally understanding that her husband's construction business had been only one part of his life. "Lisa," Rob said as medics checked her for injuries, "you're going to be debriefed by people who make Mills look like an amateur. Tell them everything you know about Blackwood's operation. Every detail, no matter how small. What about us? What about our family?" Rob looked at the woman who'd tried to have him killed, who'd been willing to watch him die for the promise of a new life with a serial killer. The woman who'd put their son in danger through her selfishness and stupidity. "There is no us, Lisa. There is no family. After tonight, you're a witness in a federal investigation, nothing more. But Danny will be told that his mother made some bad choices and had to go away. When he's older, when he can handle the truth, he'll learn what kind of person you really are. Until then, he's my responsibility." Master Sergeant Rodriguez approached with a tablet, displaying tactical information. "Sergeant, we've got Blackwood's location. Compound in the Berkshire Mountains, about 2 hours north. Command wants to know if you're available for consultation on the takedown." Rob looked at his destroyed house, at his son's bedroom window that was now just twisted metal and broken glass, at the woman who'd shared his bed and planned his murder. Lisa, he said, you have two choices. You can cooperate fully with the federal investigation, testify against Mills and anyone else in Blackwood's network, and accept witness protection when it's over. Or you can try to fight this, claim you were coerced, and spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder. What do you mean? I mean, Arthur Blackwood isn't the only one with resources. The difference is mine come with official government backing. If you cooperate, you get a new identity and a fresh start somewhere far from here. If you don't, Rob didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. Lisa had seen enough tonight to understand exactly what kind of man she'd betrayed. I'll cooperate, she said quietly. I'll tell them everything. Good. Rodriguez, get her to the debrief team. Full protection protocols. As Lisa was led away by federal agents, she turned back once. Robert? I'm sorry. For all of it. Rob watched her disappear into the back of an armored vehicle, feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. Sorry wasn't enough. Sorry wouldn't bring back the 15 years she'd stolen from him with her lies. Sorry wouldn't erase the fact that she'd been prepared to watch him die. Sergeant, Rodriguez was waiting for his answer about the Blackwood operation. Rob thought about Danny, safe now but traumatized by the night's events. About the life they'd have to build together, father and son, after the wreckage of everything they'd thought was real. About Arthur Blackwood, who'd threatened his family and was still out there, planning his next move. Tell command I'm available, Rob said. And tell them I want to be the one who puts Blackwood down. Copy that. What about your son? He goes to my brother's house in Colorado until this is finished. Full protection detail. And after it's finished? Rob looked at the ruins of his suburban dream, at the life he'd built and lost in a single night, at the future that stretched ahead of them, uncertain but finally honest. After it's finished, Danny and I start over. Somewhere new, with no lies between us. The Blackhawk's engines spooled up, ready to take him back to the war he'd thought he'd left behind. But this time, it wasn't about politics or territory or ideology. This time was personal. Rob Hartwell had spent 15 years pretending to be someone else, playing the role of suburban contractor and family man. But tonight had stripped away all pretense, revealing the soldier underneath. And soldiers, Rob knew, never left battles unfinished. As the helicopter lifted off into the dark Connecticut sky, carrying him toward his final confrontation with Arthur Blackwood, Rob felt something he hadn't experienced in years, the cold, pure satisfaction of purpose. He was going back to war, and this time he was going to finish it. 3 months later, Danny Hartwell sat in his new bedroom in Colorado, reading a letter from his father. The handwriting was familiar, but the man who'd written it was someone Danny was still learning to know. Son, the letter read, I know this has been hard. I know you have questions about your mother, about me, about why everything changed so suddenly. When you're ready, I'll answer all of them. But for now, I need you to understand one thing. Everything I did to protect you. Everything I will do for the same reason. You're my family now, my only family, and that means everything to me. Dad, Danny folded the letter and looked out his window at the Colorado mountains, thinking about the father he'd thought he knew and the father he was learning to understand. A man who'd built them a quiet life in Connecticut, then destroyed it in a single night to keep them safe. A man who'd loved them enough to become a monster when monsters came calling. And despite everything, the fear, the confusion, the loss of the mother he'd thought he knew, Danny found himself proud to be Robert Hartwell's son. Outside his window, federal agents maintained their watch, protecting them both until the last of Arthur Blackwood's network was eliminated. Danny didn't know how long that would take, but he was learning patience from his father, learning that some things were worth waiting for, learning that love, real love, looked like protection rather than promises, and learning that sometimes the best way to build a family was to destroy everything that threatened it. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen, and I'll see you there.